Hey everybody, welcome to Technically Unraveled. I am Kristen Fehrenbach, the Senior Director of Microsoft Go-to-Market here at Pax8. I'm actually here in Denver at our HQ this week. We are doing a sales kickoff, so we've got all of our sales team in town. It has been a wild week. Super excited to be here just to see the rest of the sales team that actually interact with all of you partners on a day-to-day basis. So super thankful for this time. Please make sure that you are liking, subscribing, sharing, doing all those things. We've got so much content that we are going to continue to cover week over week. Every Thursday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. I'm getting that time right 2 weeks in a row, guys, 2 p.m. So today we are going to go and talk to Jake Humphrey. He's actually part of our professional services team. He's joined us before. He's going to be back here in just a little bit. We're going to be talking about Microsoft Intune. I've been maybe promoting this as In Sync with Intune, which he's not quite a fan of, but I thoroughly enjoy it. So we're going to keep on rolling with it. But before we introduce Jake, I want to make sure that we are going through some important updates with everybody. So first and foremost, let's talk about some Pax8 events because the lineup is outstanding right now. We have lots of events that we're going to be offering. First and foremost, we want to make sure that we are talking about Azure Bootcamp. It is virtual. It's January 24th and 25th. You still got time to register. It's free. Please make sure you're there. There's so much content that comes out of these. You're looking for that technical deep dive. This is the place you want to go. And not only that, the rest of Jake's team from ProServe, they're there to support it. So it is one big Microsoft family for all Pax8 boot camps. Next, I want to talk about, what are we talking about next? That's a great question. It's on the screen, guys. We're going to talk about Security Bootcamp. This one is in person. So we are going to be in Kansas City. So please make sure you are signing up to that. Last time for Security Bootcamp, we sold out of tickets. So it is a limited space. Please make sure that you're signing up early. It's pax8.com/events. Make sure you're going to be there. I'll be there. I would love to see you in person. Last but not least is Pax8 Beyond. Now, this event, it's the first time we've done it. It's already massive. There is incredible speakers that are going to be there. We've got senior leaders from Microsoft Direct that are going to be there, the entire Pax8 Microsoft team, bunch of different vendors. You want to make sure that you're signing up right now because you're still getting the early bird pricing. So if you have any questions, what's going to be covered, who should go to this event, it's everybody. Contact your account team. They have all those details. Would love to see you all there. Now, for GDAP, oh gosh, I know you're all going to be shocked by this. Microsoft's pushed out the timeline. So good news, we got a little bit more time on this. So right now we are going to wait until that February 15th date. At that point, Microsoft will come back to us and let us know when are we going to have to switch over to GDAP. So we are awaiting that time and we will make sure that there are notices sent out 60 days in advance to all of you partners. We're keeping you updated as soon as we get that information. Now, the last big update that I do want to talk about is there's been some Azure fraud cases. We talked about it a little bit last week. I'm just going to, it's MFA. This is the biggest thing that I can just plead with you to please turn on if it is not on already. It makes it much easier if something like this does happen that we can go to Microsoft and say MFA was enabled. What else can we do? If that's not on, it makes it a little bit just more challenging for us. So please turn on MFA. If you have questions, if you have issues with Azure fraud that are happening right now, get in touch with your account team. We are working through those as quickly as possible if you are affected. So that is all on that. I do want to bring in Jake Humphrey. Thanks for joining us again, Jake.
Hey, Kristen, happy to be here.
Excellent. So you were on our very first show. Like you were my guinea pig, honestly. So we've gone through a couple different hosts and you even came back. So I just want to thank you for coming back. Tell us, if somebody they didn't catch the first show, tell us what you do here at Pax8.
Yeah, I don't know why I keep coming back, just for more punishment, I guess. But hey, it's always in good fun. So I'm actually the manager of cloud solutions for the modern workplace side. So I kind of handle the team where we do a lot of the mail migrations, Intune components. We go do those type of setups, trainings. I now take over the SharePoint team as well. So we kind of run the team that just allows for all of those training pieces to show someone how to do them or do it for them. So that's kind of what my team really handles.
Excellent. So the Microsoft team here at Pax8 and Jake's team work super closely together. So anything that you need, if you might need help, whatever it is, this team is always here to support. Love working with you guys. But I know that you are here because we want to talk about Microsoft Intune. And I know we gave a little bit of a teaser on maybe a previous episode, but I think it's really important to talk about what can Microsoft Intune do for these different organizations. So I just kind of want to start out there.
Yeah, and that's the best place to start is, hey, what can this structure do for me? I think we're at a point now where most people have heard about it, but not a lot of people have actually really dove into it quite yet. So the big components that Intune can really bring for you if you are in a cloud forward environment, let's just say you're not running any on-premise anything, as just a quick example. It'll just kind of get you all that management. So you don't have to worry about users out in the field. You don't have to worry about having to stand up a domain controller to run group policy objects or having to go and sit down with each individual user to deploy down applications, get them prepped for it. Everything can all just be cloud handled. So you just push everything through a network, whether it's a home network, office network, public network, anywhere that anybody's working nowadays. That's the big piece that Intune is going to get for you is make sure that users can have their machines where it's convenient for them, but also really be able to make sure that from an organizational perspective, you're keeping everything safe. You're not having to worry about what people are doing. I don't have to worry about what Kristen's put on her machine. I can make sure that I'm managing all of that. So really kind of keeps that management component really forward.
You can trust me, Jake.
No, I can't, and you know that.
All right. So, look, we've got, I think Intune's that great thing that says, let's make sure that your work environment's secure. I think when you look at Microsoft this past year, everything's built around security. That is their singular pillar. That is just screaming out to me and over. And I mean, Intune is a great way to enable that. Jake, I mean, are you on the same page here?
Yeah, absolutely. Running that enablement is huge because I think historically, when people wanted to have this level of management and security with a lot of these things, you had to connect to a domain network. So you had to trust your users to connect to a VPN or things of that nature. Now I just have to be on the network. I don't know the last time I had a laptop that I actively used that wasn't connected to Wi-Fi unless I was in the process of connecting it to Wi-Fi. So having that piece and just knowing that it can be managed from there is exactly what I need. So.
Excellent, excellent. So let's talk about just what are the different types of systems that this can work on. I mean, I want to make sure that, one, is this going to work in different environments? So you tell us, Jake.
Yeah, it works pretty much everywhere now. Obviously, Windows is the big piece, and that's kind of where people think, well, this is all that it can really do. It works for Mac OS, iOS, Android, all of those type of items. There's actually two other structures that actually have recently gone into preview with both Chrome OS and Linux. They're not super capable right now. They're just kind of dipping their toe in that water, but I think Chrome OS is going to be a very big expansion coming very soon. Educational systems use those quite a bit, so it'll help quite a lot, and you just always
Those
rely on Intune to
Chromebooks.
kind of keep that management. Exactly.
Yep. I always really love when everybody on the back end goes, "Oh, yeah, I can see like the head nods from everybody else that's helping produce the show." They're like, "Yeah, this sounds great. We should absolutely use this." So, yeah, excellent. See, I love having the like full team buy-in. So, I want to make sure like we're really still making sure that everybody is moving from on-prem to the cloud. So, does this help our partners with this transition?
Yeah. One of my favorite features that is actually live in Intune is actually has really grown in this last year. Is there's a lot of tools inside of Intune that can actually help get you ready from an on-premise to a cloud forward move. A lot of MDM structures as examples. It's pretty much a, hey, just copy and paste as much as you can. By the way, there's no way to automatically do it. You have to just kind of look at what you have and recreate it on your own. Whereas now Intune will actually have a component where if you're a heavy group policy object environment, you can actually use an analysis tool that will say, hey, upload your group policies into here, and then we'll tell you what's compatible. If it's a Windows Vista management component, it'll say, hey, you don't even need this anymore. Or if it's a Windows 10 piece, it'll say, hey, this is good to go. You manage this in Intune. And then my favorite update I think they've ever released, and we worked with Intune for about the last 5 years, is that they just gave you a migrate button. So if you say, hey, here's these settings, go ahead and check that box, and it just creates that policy for you inside of Intune and just has it ready for you.
It is
Makes a
just
very, very simple
click to
movement.
migrate now.
It is, you check the box, you see migrate just ungraze, and then you click that, and then you just click next a few times. That's it. You don't have to actually worry about like, well, I have these screenshots of this object, and now I have to go and recreate them. Is there any verbiage translation issues where I have to figure out what this means and it now means this? And it just says, nope, here you go, done, good to go.
Sounds like I'm joining the ProServe team after all. I got my Microsoft Insider. We're ready to go. We've got, yeah, you got to make sure you got the cat.
So
Always
jealous.
very exciting. I mean, you've got the dinosaurs, so we're really
Yeah, but
just
I
trying
had
to
to get
represent
these
Microsoft
myself.
all around.
These are just
I owe
Jake
you a
branded
shirt.
though.
I owe you a shirt. I know. I think Claire's got the dinosaur. Let's see. Does Claire have the dinosaur? Yeah. See,
That's
look, Claire.
that's just the
Yeah,
best one.
yeah. It's great. All right. So we're obviously all on board with Microsoft here. I've just like blanketed just to make sure, I want everybody to be on the same page, right? But I want to go back because what are a couple ways that partners can maximize security benefits through Intune? And I think that one, I want people to sign up for the security bootcamp because they're going to learn a ton. And this is part of that whole boot camp as well. So let's give a couple sneak peeks on two different ways.
Yeah, and this is one of those topics of it's too bad it's only a 30-minute show because we could turn this into a 6-hour event. But some of the best ways to really kind of end up doing a full security kind of loadout with these is I think the big piece with Windows, you can end up just deploying BitLocker. So obviously, your big concern with a lot of these devices is they're out in the field. You don't know what's happening. You don't know someone's going to leave one on a bus, leave one at Starbucks. You're going to leave them somewhere. So you got to make sure that those drives are encrypted. You can just deploy that out from Intune. Intune will actually manage that. It will rotate the keys. It will allow you to just set whatever your encryption values are.
So
You
wait,
can
I
actually
want
just
to I
go
want to
through and say,
wait.
I
So
want,
you're
yeah.
saying it can rotate the keys. I want you to explain a
Mhm.
little bit more about what that means.
Yeah. So for those who are not super familiar with BitLocker, it's just your encryption type. So it basically just makes everything so it's more or less, for lack of better terms, unreadable. If you were to take the drive out and put it into another computer or anything like that, it's going to be unreadable at that point because it doesn't have a specific key to the kingdom where it says, this is what I need to match with to say, like, this is going to give me drive access. So the importance of rotating that key out is, let's just say if you boot up your machine or something's going wrong and you have to kind of use that key, it's a 25 character key. End users, in all reality, they're going to write that key down
25.
because they're not going to just remember that. I don't know any of my BitLocker keys. I'll be honest, I have to go through and write it down on a sheet of paper. The reason why it
Can
is
we
very
do
important
that?
to
We can just
rotate
write
that
it down
key,
on sheets of paper?
no, you should not do that. But when you're going to unlock your drive, you might have to because
Okay.
users aren't going to remember. They're generally one-time use. It's not a password you create. It is not a memorable component for the most part in most scenarios. So it's going to be a random 25-digit password you throw in there. So when someone does get that horrifying screen that says, hey, your drive is locked, please put in your key to continue. You have to fill out that key. Someone's probably writing it down in all reality. So what I usually recommend is if someone ever has to go through that process, you can just have Intune rotate that key out. Hey, was that key used? Cool. It is no longer good. So that sheet of
It's
paper that
amazing.
I now wrote this long password on is now useless to everybody. Simple as that. So
I
let me
feel
be also
Natalie
very
like
clear. I never
snapping in the
condone writing
background,
these
very
down.
excited.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, people should never be writing this stuff down, but you have to look at the reality of what it is. You're not going to
Sure.
be able to be on the. I'm not going to be able to be on the phone with Kristen and say, "Hey, here's what your key is. Remember it." It's going to be cool. You're going to have to probably jot it down really quick to make sure you get it right. Because if I'm just repeating it to you, you're typing in, you get it wrong. Cool. You got to start over, and then you just do that again and again until you get it right. So
The
that key
dyslexic in me
rotation
would
component
not,
is
it would
big.
not work out well, okay?
Exactly. So very, very end user thinking there. I always appreciate it.
All right. So you mentioned something, and I think that for Intune, it's super important we talk about because everybody's working from different places. I mean, I went to New York recently and I still had my computer. I was able to log in. So there's different scenarios where people are going to have BYOD, where they're not always going to have their work device, but they're still able to log in. What can
Yeah,
Intune do to make sure that those devices are still protected? Because even on my cell phone, I have access to my work information.
sure. Yeah, this is actually one of maybe my personally favorite conversations to have around this is like, hey, how do I manage somebody's iPhone? Because historically it was always the conversation of, all right, cool, if you want to have your email on your phone, what you have to do is we have to go through a couple of steps for enrollment, and I need to have control of this device. And what that would mean is, as an organization, I have control of your device, you leave, I have to wipe your device. That's fine from the organization. They don't care anymore. Their data's off your device. They're fine. As an end user, that's horrible to just know, like, cool, my device might have to get wiped. My device might have to, get rebuilt. If I don't have things backed up, I'm in a lot of trouble. So one of the great things
Photos,
you can do with the
contacts,
Intune
like
structure,
that's
yeah,
important.
everything. Everybody lives their lives off their phones now. So having it wiped out, just not really a great option.
No,
So
not at
what
all.
Intune will really bring in now is application protections. So you don't have to go through and enroll your entire device anymore. I just have to say, like, hey, if you're going to access your email, you have to use Outlook. You can't use the iOS mail app. You can't use a Gmail app. You can't use whatever. You have to use Outlook.
Did you
And
say
then,
Gmail app? What are you doing?
yeah, you'd be surprised how often that's a big thing of our executive wants to use Gmail. All right, great. Anyways, that's another conversation for another time. So, um, getting people to utilize the Outlook app is cool. Now I can push down policies for one. I can say, cool, you can't copy and paste out of Outlook into the Notes app. You can't actually download an attachment and save it to your personal OneDrive account. It's nope. If you want to do any of this stuff, it can stay inside of our ecosystem of applications. And the other great part is someone leaves the organization. I don't have to wipe your device. I can just wipe Outlook. So I can just say, cool, my data is going to be off your device. Your device is going to be the exact same as when you set it up. You're just not going to have your corporate access
Yeah.
anymore. It can also be important if a device is lost or stolen, because those can get recovered. But as an organization, I don't know it's going to be recovered. I can preemptively remove my data, and then for you to get that data back of your emails or your OneDrive account or any of that, you sign back in. It just populates back down. Done. And then
Yeah, I
we don't have
mean,
to worry
as
about having
somebody
your device be
who
wiped out.
regularly loses her phone, I
Yep.
thoroughly
I think
enjoy
we
that
just
that is
talked about that not
wipeable.
too long ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had Claire running around looking for my phone. It was a whole shebang earlier. So I mean, the
Yep.
fact that there are things in place to prevent data leaks, because more
Mhm.
often than not, Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of these things happen on accident. It's not somebody maliciously
Yeah.
going in and sharing it. It's somebody just going in and not realizing that they shouldn't be doing something and putting in those
Yep.
parameters because if somebody really wants to do something, they're usually it's not malicious.
Mhm. Yeah. Most all of these types of data leaks are just, they're not negligence. They're not espionage, as fun as that word is to say. And everyone hopes that that's what it is because then you get to do a cool investigation. It's no, someone just didn't realize what they were doing and they were able to do it. So they did it because it was easier. Or it's just the
Mm-hmm.
method that they knew and they're familiar with this. And that's all it was. Very rarely do these kind of situations really come into play. But they do happen. So you also need to plan for those as well. But for the most part, it's, hey, let me just make sure that I'm not going to let you make a mistake with my data. Let me make sure that I can actually kind of keep this all under control, and my data on your device is being used the way that I see fit as an organization without impacting the rest of the
Guardrails.
data. So exactly, sandbox it as much as you can.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I want to go through a couple of questions that are just regularly asked because what's funny is somebody says Intune and then they say autopilot and then they interchange those words like they're the
Mhm.
same. So let's talk a little bit about autopilot and a couple of maybe just the misconceptions that happen around that.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably one of the most common questions I receive is someone coming to us and saying, "Hey, we would like you guys to set this all up for us. I want autopilot set up right away so that I can do all these things." The most common things people ask for is, I want to push policies, I want to push applications, I want to do these things to my devices. So I need to set autopilot up. And the big misconception there is that's not really autopilot doing that. It's actually the Intune structure doing that. You actually can completely avoid the autopilot environment and still have all of those things. Where autopilot is an absolute extreme value add is provisioning new devices. I have worked positions in the past where I had to do device provisioning manually, and man, did I wish I had Autopilot at the time. Because what that structure can look like is I can reach out to a vendor and say, hey, ship this device to Kristen. Kristen signs in, and then she receives everything. She doesn't have to go through device setup. I don't have to sit with her, most importantly, and answer what insane questions she might have.
Where's the power button? Okay, I can figure that part
Exactly.
out. But like I get this device, I open it up and turn it
Mhm.
on, bam, policies,
Yep.
everything ready to go.
Yep. Yep. As long as you're connected to a network, which it's going to pretty much require anyways, everything will
Mm-hmm.
just start pulling down on your own home network without me having to be with you, without you having to do anything crazy. It'll just say, hey, welcome, Kristen, to the Pax8 environment. Put in your password. You put in your password, and then things just go. And it makes it incredibly
Things
simple. So
just go.
that's where Autopilot is the big thing. It's that kind of misconception of Autopilot versus Intune. Autopilot is just your zero touch policies, whereas Intune is the piece that actually is going to be deploying your items down. So,
It really sounds like it would just save a ton of time on anybody that's in
yes.
IT from having somebody say, you know, well, okay, well, what now? Well, okay, I got to download this. How do I, instead of just
Yep.
open up, put your password in, it's all going to download.
Yep. And then just as an admin, I can have those set for you. Say, cool, you're in finance, you need to have these applications. Sales needs to have these. And that's it. You can just segment everything off without having to actually go and sit down and install these things for people.
So why doesn't everybody have autopilot set up, Jay?
That's a great question. That's what we're trying to help people out with, is get everybody all on board there.
All right, well, we'll circle back to that one soon. Now, as a new admin, what are some common mistakes that you see? Because there's a lot of times that people will call you and say, hey, you know what, I set this up and ugh, I messed up.
Yeah. Yeah, it really comes down to just a couple of very small points that are very easy to correct. The first one is always going to be licensing. One thing that I think everybody forgets is every user who is going to be utilizing the Intune structure. So again, they're going to have policies deployed to them, applications deployed down to them. They need to be licensed for Intune. Simple as that. So business premium licensing is kind of the number one we usually recommend because that's going to get them everything they need. We've definitely talked about that before, of being one of the better values of things. But no matter what, the user is going to have Intune licensing. If they don't have Intune licensing, they will still be able to get things signed in. It just won't work. They won't have items deployed. They won't have applications deployed. They're going to see some big security holes as well. So from an admin, you kind of want to make sure that any user that's going to be receiving, like an Autopilot device, that's not going to have you with them over their shoulder, make sure they're licensed for it, because then all they have to do is sign in, and that's going to make it super simple. The
Okay,
only
so
other
business
piece that I
premium,
really like to touch
check.
on, yeah, and then enrollment counts. That's the only other one that a lot of people run into, is that there are limits of how many devices you can enroll. So each individual user, by default, can only enroll 5 devices. That can be maxed up to
Okay.
15. You just have to make that change. So if you do have users that have more than one device or 5 devices that are going to be managed by Intune, just make sure that you are paying attention to that count.
It's a
Again, this
lot of
is going to be
devices,
Intune
more than
specifically
five.
enrolled. Yeah, the common scenario that people will run into is they'll say, hey, we don't want our users touching these. We want an IT admin coming in and rolling all these devices. It might be 200 or so. So, as opposed to having to create multiple accounts that are all licensed for 15 devices at a time, use it what's called a device enrollment manager, where it's going to be one account that does still have to be Intune licensed, and then you can do up to 1,000 for that one account. Multiple device enrollment managers can be set up. You're good for up to 1,000 devices. So that's another really common area, because the errors you receive aren't always the most straightforward. They'll just say, hey, this exceeded the limit, but it won't exactly say what that
The
limit
limit
is.
of
So
what?
sometimes they
The
can kind
limit
of
of
have that bit of
what?
an issue. So,
Okay,
yep,
that
exactly. So
makes
it's
sense.
not the most obvious. Yeah.
You know
Those
what?
are the
I
two
see
most
it in the
common
chat
scenarios I
real
see.
quick. I see in the chat, and it's funny because you know what? I really just kind of zoned in on this saves the IT person time, and I didn't really zone in on what Laura's saying of the employees like me won't feel silly asking questions, and I think that that's also really key because
Yeah.
one, I'm saving the IT person time, and two, I'm making sure that these new people they don't come in like, oh my god, I can't ask a question. What do? I don't want to seem like I work for a technology company and I don't know how to set up my technology.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that human element of just being a new hire. Sometimes you might be a little nervous coming into a place, like, I don't want to just harass these people nonstop with all these questions, because then when I do have a problem, they might not want to talk to me. Uh, Having this just simplify everything is good for everybody. Saves your IT folks up to 4 to 5 hours per machine. That's what my life was back in the day of just having to spend 4 hours
Per
per new
machine?
setup. I no longer have that per machine. It was great. Loved it. For each individual software suite I had to install, it was a lot. I worked in some complex environments that just didn't have great structures. So this would have helped
Wow.
me immensely. So
It really sounds like it,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
question, because this comes up when, so,
Mhm,
you go to Bing, you go to Google, whatever it is, right? And you type in Intune and it says, what is my Intune app pin? And you see that pretty
mhm.
consistently. So, I want to make sure that we really talk about that as well.
Sure. There's a couple of pins that can be coming into play depending on kind of where you're looking. Because like an Intune app pin officially is going to be just setting up a pin on a device and say, hey, this is going to be required to access these devices. There's also going to be Hello for Business pins that will also be required to be set up depending on your organization. That's another very common scenario that we try to deploy out, where that is actually one of my favorite structures that end users tend to hate because it's one more thing they have to remember. But
But
it
they
really all
hate
comes down to
it.
how
I
you pitch it.
love it.
They Some people just don't respond well to it, but I've found out it comes out to how you pitch it. If you come out and say, "Hey, on your laptop, you no longer have to type in this password. You just have to do a 6-digit PIN. It is going to be local transfer only, so there's going to be no network grab on it. You can be offline. You can do whatever with it, and it's going to be a much more secure method. It's going to be a very light level. I don't want to use the term MFA, but it's very similar to that type of structure. Whereas opposed to putting in your password, it's going to be a little bit more just pinned based on the actual device. So that can be a
I
really
feel
common
like
one that can be kind of thrown in as
we're
well.
getting some like repetitive things here. I think it's like business premium,
Yeah,
MFA, professional service. So I think we're getting a little bit of a trend here. But this show
yeah.
seems to go by quicker and quicker week after week. But I want to make sure we talk about multi identity support and what does that actually mean?
Yeah, I'll keep this one quick. That is actually going to allow for several identities on one device, much like it's kind of mentioning. Really, in the Android structure, it's a really nice piece because you can have your company side and you can have your personal side. So without having to worry about meshing the two together. So you can manage a company stuff on a personal device without running the risk of wiping someone's kind of personal ends. So when you push that wipe, just the company stuff goes, not the actual end user pieces. So that's very high level. There's a lot more that can really kind of come through. Maybe another conversation for another day, but really kind of want to
Excellent.
just touch very briefly on it.
Awesome, Jake. You know what? I always enjoy having you on. Thank you for the time this afternoon, and we will be seeing you back here soon, I hope.
Thank you. Love doing it. Good talking to you, Kristen.
Awesome, awesome. So, couple of things. We went through some important updates. Jake, as always, was incredible. Thank you for sharing that knowledge with us. Want to make sure that you are liking, subscribing, sharing, doing all those great things. Want to make sure that we are able to continue to get this message out to you. I did see a comment that just came in, and I have like 1 extra minute. So, can we not just pay pro services to set up our accounts? Absolutely, you sure can. Jake Humphrey, do I just like put your cell phone number in here?
Yeah, I can't imagine why not. Nothing wrong with that.
Excellent. So contact your account team. Jake and team are always ready to support. Professional services will absolutely be able to set this up for you. Make sure you're tuning in to the game tomorrow with Dom and Matt, but we will see you back here next week at 2 p.m. Have a good one, everybody.